I'm sure we've all heard since kindergarten that honesty is the best policy. Did you hit the soft spot of Billy's skull with that block? No? You disgusting liar. But I'm here to tell you that sometimes lying will really take you places, and I'm not just talking about time out. Today we'll be taking a deep dive into a guy who showed that honesty is for chumps who don't like to profit off of the tragedy of others. But before we begin, please consider gently brushing that subscribe button with your little fingies, fantasizing about how it might feel to press it. You don't have to click on it. I'm not telling you how to live your life. Anyway, our legendary liar Titus Oates was born in England in 1649 to a family of ribbon weavers, which I guess was a real job at the time. His father was a Baptist minister, and he pushed Titus to follow in his footsteps. This meant that Titus ended up going to college to become a minister himself, but he flunked out over the course of a single semester. Apparently, he was known for being a complete idiot, and also for being gay, which, well, it probably didn't make him that popular at Bible college. Or maybe it did. I don't know, I wasn't there. Now, you'd probably think that failing to get his degree in ministry would keep him from pursuing that particular career, but Titus didn't see things that way. Instead, he went to the Bishop of London, who was the number 3 guy in the Church of England. Hey, your bishopfulness, could I get licensed and ordained as a priest? I don't know, do you have a degree in ministry? Pfft, what? Of course I do. Okay. That's right, nobody double-checked his credentials, so Titus was assigned a spiritual flock of his own with 0 effort. Well, he got tired of this pretty quickly, so he set his sights on a new job, a schoolmaster in Hastings. Unfortunately, the position was already filled by someone else, and that guy wasn't about to give it up. So what did Titus do? That guy's a pedo. As it turned out, nobody believed the lie this time, and Titus was arrested for perjury. But instead of serving out his sentence like a normal person, he escaped from jail, ran away to London, and took a job as a chaplain on board a naval ship. This lasted only a handful of months before he was caught getting frisky with the Navy men, and you know what that means in 1600s England. That's right, the death penalty. The only reason Titus wasn't hung is because he was a priest, or maybe he was hung. Anyway, this whole fiasco got him kicked out of the Navy and dropped off in London, where he was promptly arrested for his outstanding perjury charges and dragged back to Hastings. This time, we've got you dead to right. Are you Believe it or not, Titus managed to escape from jail again and ran back to London. At one point, he met a guy named Israel Tong, who was widely believed to be insane. Now, Israel Tong absolutely despised Catholics. I mean, he basically pissed on the ground they walked on. This man spent every waking moment writing schizo theories about how the Pope was responsible for every bad thing from nihilism to 9/11, and pretty much everybody hated him. Well, him and Titus became best buddies, even though Titus had recently converted to Catholicism. In fact, Titus agreed to co-author a series of anti-Catholic pamphlets with him, despite actively working to become a Catholic priest himself. Actually, Titus was so serious about becoming a Catholic that he managed to get a scholarship to a school in the Netherlands that would train him to become an ordained priest. He told everybody there that he had a doctorate in divinity, but he was kicked out a year later after it turned out he couldn't speak a single word of Latin. Now, you'll notice Titus only had one strategy: lie, fail, get kicked out, escalate. So what do you think he did next? You're back, you dirty Catholic. It's not like that! I was only pretending to be Catholic so I could learn their secrets. What? Yeah, and, get this. They're trying to assassinate the king. What? Someone should do something! Well, is he? Aren't we someone? So Titus and Israel went to the king to warn him of the supposed plot. Ugh, this guy. Get out of here. But this is really important. Tell it to one of my advisors. I gotta go tax the colonies or something. The Catholics want to kill the king. Really? The advisor believed everything Titus said and helped him find a court that would listen. Eventually, Titus and Israel were given the opportunity to plead their case, and a month later, the judge that oversaw the whole thing was murdered and thrown into a ditch. Who could have done it? Titus had an answer. For the record, Titus is believed to have been too cowardly to have been the murderer. It really was just a perfect coincidence. Anyway, he accused over 500 individuals, including nobles, of conspiring to murder the king. Now, all of these names were basically drawn out of a hat, but somehow Titus managed to accuse the one guy who actually had evidence against him. Edward Coleman, who was a Catholic secretary, had recently been in contact with the French king's personal priest, which basically meant he was screwed. I guess it didn't really matter what he'd been saying in his letters to the priest. The fact that he'd sent them at all meant he was guilty. Now, you might think that watching an innocent man get hung, drawn, and quartered would teach Titus to stop lying, but you would be a wrong person. No, Titus doubled down on his conspiracy theory, and now people were listening. At one point, he amazed the courtroom by identifying the authors of some incriminating letters at a glance, and nobody even thought to question if he'd written them himself. It got so bad that Titus was actually given a personal squad of soldiers to round up suspects, and he started arresting people left and right. Titus's pants were so on fire that he eventually accused the literal Queen of England of trying to murder the king, which shook the king out of whatever stasis sleep he'd been in this whole time. Okay, Titus, you've got my attention. It's true, I was told by the Regent of Spain himself. Oh, and what did he look like? Well, you know, he looked human? Alright, now I know you're lying. Look at him. Look! You're going away for a long time, buddy. So Titus got locked up for all of a couple days. An unrelated crisis happened to shake the government right after he was put in jail, and the king was forced to release him, where he was promptly given a luxury home and an allowance. At this point, the hysteria had reached its height, to the point where noblewomen didn't feel safe going outside at night without firearms in case the Pope was waiting in a bush to shank them. Actually, and this is not a joke, anyone who was even suspected of being Catholic wasn't allowed within 10 miles of London. Now, as ludicrous as this all was, it had very real consequences for the people who were involved. At least 22 innocent people were imprisoned, tortured, and executed for treason, not counting those who were killed by angry mobs. This tragedy was known as the Popish Plot, and all told, it was one of England's most notorious periods of extreme religious persecution. But did Titus care? Not at all. He was living it up in style, even applying for his very own coat of arms. Who cares if people are being unjustly murdered if it means you get to be a big shot, am I right? Well, I guess 3 years of watching their friends and neighbors get executed made people a little tired of Titus, because public opinion began to turn against him. Judges started throwing around pardons like it was a birthday at Chuck E. Cheese, and the king, who had never believed a word from Titus anyway, was now publicly declaring that he approved of the pardons. Eventually, Titus was kicked out of his apartment. Now you'd think that everything going Pope-shaped would teach Titus to cut his losses and call it a day. He'd had his time in the spotlight, after all, and now would be a very good time to retire. But no, not Titus. He'd just reached step 3 of his cycle, and he wasn't about to change the way he did things. Guys, all I'm saying is that the king has a Catholic brother. Maybe the king is helping the Catholics. Unsurprisingly, that particular plan failed, and Titus ended up getting arrested for sedition. Eventually, he was retried for perjury and was finally stripped of his priesthood. Yes, this whole time Titus had been an ordained minister. Now, the judge at his trial had actually helped him convict innocent men in the past, but even he was sick of Titus. In fact, him and the other judges were very openly upset that they couldn't give Titus the death penalty for perjury. So instead, they settled for life imprisonment with one bonus. Every year, Titus would be whipped in the streets of London for 5 days. Essentially, the goal was to kill him through poor treatment. Believe it or not, Titus actually survived his punishment for the most insane reason. He was pardoned after 3 years when a new king took power. Not only that, but he was even given an allowance. Of course, his reputation never recovered, but still, he ended up living a better life than the average peasant. I guess the moral of the story is, honesty is the best policy unless you have an opportunity to make a quick buck through others' suffering. Then you should lie your pants off and don't stop until the king himself condemns you. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this deep dive. A lot of people died to make it. If you have any ideas for future videos, leave a comment down below where I can see it. Thanks for watching and have a great day.